name is Valerie Bardinas, 16 Hudson Terrace, Edgewater, New Jersey. Mr. Franz informed me several meetings ago that he had provided the council, the mayor and council, with the controller's report on municipal tax abatements, which is another word for a pilot program. You can go online, you just tap in New Jersey State Controllers, and there's a wealth of information. I did a little homework here, and I hope you all did too, on abatements, because you passed the last abatement without any discussion, and I know several of you weren't on the council at the time, but there was very little discussion and absolutely no proof of anything that was said, and you took a vote on it. What seems to be happening here is a shell game with the affordable units. We had, on our last application to COA to be certified, which was our third round, I believe, wasn't actually certified yet, we had listed properties that were going to be offered as part of our COA obligation. The Vreeland building was one, and at the time, I was on the council, I did vote against it because I think when you put all your affordable housing in one section of town, you're really going against the Mount Laurel decision, which says in order to have a diverse town, your affordable housing should be spread out through the town. Nobody should be able to drive through your town and know exactly where your affordable is. People should live together. That's what makes a town affordable. And the towns that have done this successfully, you'll notice how beautiful a town is. You don't have sections that in a sense are redlined. The gentleman here was talking about what the state offers in the way of pilot programs and how they came and how some towns had 6 Wawas and, you know, these they wanted to get away from that, so they entered into pilot programs. The history of a pilot program or a tax abatement is generally in towns where you need revitalization, say Edgewater 20 years ago, where you wanted to lure developers in and offer them. Jersey City is a good example, Bayonne is a good example, where you needed to bring in developers to build residential units because you wanted to attract people here. Edgewater, if you look in this tax abatement, Edgewater does not fit any of the criteria that is generally used to consider an abatement. And some of the reasons that the controller says should be, the reasons why it should be discouraged are, and if you give me a second, because my notes are this. Pilot programs often exceed the revenue that they would have received, that the town would have received under a traditional tax structure. Which means when you're luring in, for Jersey City for instance, they needed to bring in new development. Jersey City was a dying town at the time. But they granted the tax abatements in such huge amounts that 10 years, 20 years down the road, they're still giving these tax abatements. The city is now revitalized and they're losing valuable tax dollars. And when you lose valuable tax dollars, you have to lay off people, your economy struggles. So it doesn't, when you do the numbers, it just isn't beneficial for a town. The two entities that suffer the most, besides residents who pay the taxes, who have to make up for any shortfall of taxes, are schools in counties. Schools and counties do not receive a portion of the revenue that you get in a pilot program. The gentleman said 9%. That's not true. They don't receive any revenue. For school districts, the impact is more direct. School districts often receive a large portion of traditional property tax collections, sometimes more than half. That's on page 12 of the report. Tax abatements, school aids are affected. The borough should always do a cost analysis because if your school is not receiving their share of taxes. They have to cut programs, they have to lay off teachers, and their school, their educational program suffers. The report also suggests that the other problems with tax abatements are that there is very little follow-up, meaning that you enter into a contract, you make an agreement, but there's very little follow-up over the years of how the reports that are given, whether they're given on time, if they're given, if they're actually valid. And we've seen that with Waterford Towers. We had a real problem with our tax pilot agreement there. An abatement is an investment that is designed to produce returns. Any responsible investor would want to know if their investment has in fact generated returns. And the public should know, should be no different. We should know before you you make this decision, you should really have a cost analysis. And that's a breakdown. I'm sorry if I'm boring some of the council people here, but if you don't do a proper cost analysis and you just take the developer's word for it, it's like a car salesman trying to sell you a car. He's never going to tell you the faults. And this council shouldn't rely on the very developer who's coming here to benefit for this, with this, to provide you with the information. That would be like me buying my car and just taking the salesman's word how good my car is without doing any homework on it. And I have to tell you, it's very disturbing because when I compare what you've offered this developer with the COA plan, in August, you voted to return $150,000 from money because from 914 Undercliff Avenue. You took the money for that and you returned it to Mr. Dybes because you said he came here saying that he was going to provide those units, those affordable units, on his site. And when I said before it seems like a shell game with the COA, that's what I meant. You have essentially a building with 38 units that is being broken down where he is selling other people's obligation. And what I mean by that is, well, Mayor, you have on your site you have a requirement to provide 2 affordable units. I'll tell you what, for $30,000 you give me, we'll put it on my site, and then I'm going to go before the council and say, I have your obligation, here it is. So how many times within 38 units do the same 38 units be used for the affordable obligation? And I don't know if you're following me, but if you have a real problem with your COA plan. Okay, first of all, you're granting money, you're granting a tax abatement for an affordable unit that you don't even know is going to be accepted by COA as affordable units. You don't really get to determine that. You have the Council on Affordable Housing who can turn around and say, this is not accepted. You already have that with a few units. You have that on your on the Undercliff project where we took those 2 buildings. What is the name of that Undercliff? A home. That wasn't accepted as part of our COA. So we took that as the COA obligation for the St. Moritz. We took that and said to the developer, God bless you, you don't have to provide those units on site. You gave, we're buying these 2 buildings, we're doing an exchange. Well, guess what? The Council on Affordable Housing said, no, it doesn't meet the criteria for affordable housing. Guess what? Edgewater's not off the hook. We still have to provide that. And unless you understand really, and it's a really, and I'm sure you guys are smarter than me, but you need to do some reading. You have a real problem with your affordable obligations and your reporting. And I'm going to just say this. Mayor, you signed the checks. Mr. Franz, he's in charge of the affordable. You guys voted for him to head up the affordable program. And this council votes on it. This is not a matter of writing a complaint to a controller saying so-and-so didn't do the right job or there's a conflict of interest. We're talking tax dollars. And you're over your head right now. You are over your head. I want to just tell you this. You all have families. You better think about this, because this is serious. And I'm a taxpayer. I pay property taxes. So I'm really concerned. And I love EVG, and I don't think you should do anything that would hurt their funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor? I'd just like to say one thing. Valerie, he came in, he has the right to request to come in and present the violation. We're not leaning on his information, and we will do our homework. Everybody has to come forward.
Right, I understand that. But I want to just tell you something, Jim, and I'm going to say this in public. You got some real problems here. And I'm telling you, you're talking Attorney General problems here, you know?
Right.
And I wouldn't put my name to that.
Mary Hogan, 606 on Avenue. I had been asking, since you have just, on January 17th, you approved your resolution requesting the review and approval of the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Fund spending plan. In getting the information that Barbara had supplied under my Oprah request, you have some gaps, some major gaps that exist on what has been reported in the past and what apparently is going to be reported in the future. And there are things that really have to be addressed, should have been addressed, and if you are actually filing a yearly report on COA, I don't know how they would ever let you get away with not filling in the blanks that exist. On the 914 Undercliff Avenue, they gave 150, I don't know how many units that was supposed to be because it wasn't indicated in the report, but they gave $150,000 and then you voted in August to give that money back to Mr. Dives because he had taken over the property from Mr. Nemi, who had developed it under whatever reason. You're talking about a resolution that you approved for spending, and that $150,000, according to what has been sent to me, has not been deducted. So you have real problems on your report. You have a real problem understanding what COA is, what the reporting position is, and your obligation on this. Because when all is said and done and everybody walks away from the table, it's the taxpayers of Edgewater that's going to be paying for it. If the 18 units that the St. Moritz is not approved, the town has to provide 18 units. You're talking about improving the field. Guess how much it's going to cost you to supply these units that you haven't gotten and that are not going to be there. Mr. Don speaks about not having the money. Well, what we see and what's happening is the units that are being built are being sold. Not that they're being sold and they're going to be owned by someone else. They're being sold to other developers that say, I'm going to put your two obligations here at 38 COA on real estate. You don't know how much he's paying him to do that. It's not the same amount that you're requiring for people to give. He can charge him any amount of money for that. So to use that as a basis, well, we couldn't build it. If you're selling them all off, you certainly probably can build it. And you know what's probably happening? You're making a profit on it. And you're sitting here giving him a pilot program where now he doesn't have to pay the taxes, the regular taxes if it was a regular unit. The school gets totally messed up by not getting any taxes on that. And I really, having lived here for so long and listened to reports and reports and reports how the high-rise building is not going to give any children to the school. And Avalon produced 40 children to EVG. I really don't think that it's a requirement to move into COA that you're sterile. Those people are going to have children, and you know what? They should. That's the point of the program. It's supposed to be for families that can't afford. That's why they require you to use 3 and 2 bedrooms. It can't all be studios. And that's who's getting actually knocked down by these programs, is the schools. And you know what? They're not really getting knocked down. You and I as taxpayers are going to pay it. We're going to pay it anyway. But the developer isn't, because you gave him a benefit. And that's an issue that we have. And the same thing with the county. The county doesn't get taxes out of this, but you know what? The county wants this amount of dollars. He doesn't care where it's broken up in the town. So if this affordable isn't paying it, we are. We're making up the difference. And that's a problem that we have here. It's a big problem that you have. And you better be aware of it, because at the end, when we have a $29 million new school being built, and you know what, we're not even going to get the taxes that we should for the children that are going there, because you're given these pilot programs. You have to really understand what's going on with these programs.
We don't
This
need
is our
revitalization.
fourth pilot program in a town that's 3.5 miles long, 2.5 blocks wide. Fourth pilot program. One is the seniors. I don't have a problem with the one on Dempsey. But the other 3, you have real problems. Thank you. Oh, and it has nothing to do with this, but I told my husband I would do this. You have a problem on the senior citizens bus. The door doesn't open. A big problem, because one of the senior citizens actually fell off the bus because they were trying to get him out through the lift area and was injured. And this has been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks, where they can't get out the door. If that bus ever has an accident, you're going to be in real trouble in terms of trying to get the seniors out. Thank you.
And when is it the council's requirement to worry about a developer's funding?
Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Henry.
Thank you. Michael Williams, 6 and that on Mayor, I appreciate you letting me talk my head off here and then provide no answers and take no action. But because you've taken an oath, I'd like to ask, does that oath have any meaning to you? What meaning does it have? Without burning up my 5 minutes, because I do have some material here. Okay, thank you. This is what you usually do, promise, and then you fail to deliver. With regard to the 50 acres, since 1939, that has been for the exclusive use of the residents of Edgewater, not to be taken back because the council lied to the NJDEP and because the council is willing to have the residents of Edgewater pay probably a very hefty fine in order to give it back, in order to give the council the opportunity to see if the thing can be relegated back to the same people who have it right now. It cannot be done because the stockholders have fully paid non-assessable stock.